32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Space Boy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Space Boy Universe, featuring Space Boy and the lovely Solana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Yes. Greetings and welcome all. I am Space Boy, and across from me is the lovely Solana, and this is Space Boy Universe. We're on show number 3.02, and that means we're going to be talking about Joseph McCarthy tonight. What are you shaking your head for? Did I tongue tie it? Sorry. Anyway, so great topic tonight. We're going to have fun. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SB Universe. Follow Solana at Solana. Follow me, Space Boy at Space Boy Music. Make sure to hashtag your tweets tonight with hashtag SB Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. In addition to Twitter, you can find us all over social media. Just search for Space Boy Universe. Hey, Space Cadets, you will want to check out our YouTube channel. We do more than the archive of shows there. There is video content there from Space Boy Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. Hit that subscribe button and click that bell to be notified when new content is available. Can't catch a show live? No problemo. Take the SBU on you. Sorry about that. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartMedia, and Spotify, because, man, we love to broadcast, and especially when things are paid up. So on that magical note, let me bring in the lovely Solana. How are you tonight, Solana?
I'm okay.
Yeah,
surprisingly.
I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. What's new, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I know you like the Beatles a lot, and maybe you're a fan of Paul McCartney a lot. So
yes,
But it is Joseph McCarthy.
Thank you. I appreciate you for clearing that up for everyone.
And you knew that. I know you knew that.
Well, you know, I'm such a huge fan of the senator from back then. Of course, I want to point out I wasn't alive then, but
nor was I.
Yeah, you know, there's a few people of history, of American history, that is, that really, you know, how can I say it, gets my goat going, you know.
Well, this was a fascinating topic, and I'll get into that later.
Okay, so
why it was interesting to me.
I just want to point out, I hope everybody is appreciating the flux of content that's coming down the pipe. We've made a few updates. The Friends of Space Boy, Friends who like Space Boy Universe, is now called Space Cadets who like Space Boy Universe. So a little change there. I hope you don't mind. And there I have been hitting it left and right with content that is all over the universe. Wouldn't you agree, Solana?
Yes.
Trying to keep up the pictures and all these other things, and it's just really a full-time job, to be honest with you. And I just want to go out and say this because, you know, you used to do a lot of this.
Yes.
And I appreciate all that hard work you used to do.
Because I know you and I know what's going on behind the scenes, that was fraught with passive-aggressive tension. But we won't get into that. It's just there was a burnout, and I can't help it. And I'm starting to feel like I want to create some things, but I don't want to knock off your momentum or anything. But yeah, it's just I've experienced a lot of burnout with the program. It's not that I don't care or don't love it anymore. It's just it's a lot of work to not get paid for. You know?
True, and to
You
be
feel the same. You feel the same.
Well, that's more my day job than the SBU, with me.
Yeah, I wish it didn't have to be like this.
I think that I've taken point on this is because that this is my creation, and
Weird science.
I kind of birthed it in a way, and it just makes sense for me to be on top of it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, considering this is your idea, your baby, you want to do this, you're the one that's motivated. I'm sort of being dragged by the ankles, so it's only right that you should put this much effort into it.
And I'm not arguing that point. I think I'm doing my thing for the universe.
I feel like for me to get out of this completely would damage the marriage.
I will say that once this, whatever this you want to call this whole thing, the Space Boy
roller coaster ride,
if you will, ends, I think it's going to be awkward for us. In the sense that, I have been a driving force behind it.
Would you say this is your acting out on a midlife crisis, or just acting out of a dream?
Okay, first off, midlife crisis. Do you really think that I have a midlife crisis?
You're not quite at midlife yet, but you're close enough to maybe you're feeling it hormonally.
I don't, I have been thinking about my life in general and how it seems like, my life as time as the average lifespan of a man, and and as I look forward to what I have left possibly of my life, it doesn't seem like there's that much, and I feel I feel so driven to get certain things done before I go off. And
okay, that's a cool way to look at it.
I mean, it's not like I'm buying fancy cars and I'm leaving you for other women, even though I joke around like, hey, the Facebook honeys kind of thing, and
Don't have Facebook. Believe me, I've looked for them. You don't got them.
But I've had frank conversations with you. It's like after our marriage, I'm looking forward to like going off and being alone.
This is presuming I die first.
Well, I think you will. I know you.
So freaking determined.
I know you fantasize about dying before me.
I'm freaking determined to outlive you, and I'm gonna get me a tiny little condo, and I'll just read books there.
Whatever. I am going to continue to grow my beard out, and
no one's stopping you from growing your beard out.
No, I'm just saying, it'll be like I'll be Mountain Man or Mountain Jim or whatever you want to call me, living in a cabin in the woods.
You could do that now if you wanted to. I mean, it'll cost you a ton of money in divorce settlements.
Well, see, that's why I wait until you die.
I'm going to live so long.
You're not going to live.
If they have to put my brain in a jar or in a computer chip or a robot, I will do what it takes.
You're really going to take the mark of the beast, right?
I don't like this path we're going down. Would you like to do the usual news bantery things?
Sure. Where would you like to start?
Hold on, I'm being asked a question.
Mm-hmm. And how are the Space Cadets tonight?
I was just telling them I'm not even going to get in a relationship after Space Boy. One, you could say, yeah, you've kind of ruined me for men in a good way that no one will ever measure up.
Was that the question from Beverly?
Yeah,
will you marry again, Sir Long?
No one will ever measure up, so why bother? Plus, I found that in a relationship you've got to invest time and effort, and I don't want to do that.
So, I really appreciate your being, I guess it's a nice statement, a nice sentiment, if you will, that you don't want to marry anybody else because, you've had such
This has been great, but marriage is give and take, and I'm ready to just, after this, just take. Anyway, what's up with you?
In what sense?
I don't know. What you got over there on the plate tonight?
Well, just I don't know. Recently there was a thing with I know you're gonna. I guess we will talk about Star Wars here.
Can
we wait till the end of the program?
Can we not? What is it? Is it like under 5 minutes?
This is what I was going to say about Star Wars. Of course, there's a new thing out there. This guy that's supposedly getting his PhD submitted some kind of essay.
We're going to talk about that later.
We are. We will talk about this later. And I just wanted to point out that I was going to do a video on this, but when it came all out, I did some memes for it. And they're out there in the universe, on the interwebs.
Well, we could start the camera at that point, I suppose.
Yeah, but the thing is that I just I guess I reached a wall of, I'm really tired of yelling at, because I watch a lot of stuff of people yelling about this and yelling about that, and it's kind of like, all right, okay, I'm mad, but I can't be mad forever. It's not in my nature.
The thing you're talking about is a paper.
It's an essay.
An academic submission, right?
Yes. I'm how thrilled to death I am with academia. And
yeah, but if there's only one thing I do well, it's reading academic papers.
Yes, and I brought it to your
attention.
I brought it to your attention so you could review it. But we'll talk more about the Star Wars thing later. Mm-hmm. And
I just think it's interesting that he chose that topic as a paper to write for his PhD candidacy.
Right.
So, anyway.
So, as I'm looking for my notes here.
You want me to do anything, or?
Well, no, I've got it. I had to, scroll and scroll again. And, let's see here. Sorry, everybody. I felt like I had more energy. I'll have to have some sugar here in a little bit. Let's see.
Are you not? You may fill in this time.
Well, yeah, would you mind? I hate the. I am legitimately trying to.
Okay, I got a few quick topics I can fire out at the.
It might juice my mind here.
Okay,
well,
are you ready now?
Well, recently Roy Orbison did a hologram concert in L.A. And I was going to bring this topic up anyway too. So to kind of pick your brain. You remember in Voyager how the emergency medical hologram doctor...
yeah, because he's my favorite character on that show.
And the episode was called Virtuoso.
Virtuoso.
Mm-hmm. And how he entertained the masses of this alien world.
They found this alien world. This alien world never heard music before. But they were all scientists and mathematicians, and they loved the musical and mathematic properties of music, particularly opera and classical music. And so he became a celebrity because he could sing opera or just could sing. And so he was getting to be famous, and he was going to leave Voyager, and he was their only doctor. And she was like, "You can't do that." It's like, "Yeah, I can. I got rights too." So he was going to leave, and then they found out they made a hologram of him. I didn't need him at all. And,
right.
And I love that line, Captain Janeway says, "So you've put your tails between your legs and you're come back."
Of course, he admitted that he felt that he was wrong. But in this concert, this is not the first time they've done this holographic musician thing.
Tupac.
Yeah, Tupac was one of the first ones. Then Michael Jackson. They did Michael Jackson, and then Roy Orbison. And some of the pictures from this looks absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's just... But it raises the question that would you go see an artist that's dead, but they perform, with a hologram?
Not an entire concert with a hologram, no. Maybe as a bonus at the end. Like if some other artist was performing with a hologram of Prince. Of course, Prince would hate that if you did that. Maybe, like at the end, you sing Purple Rain with a hologram of Prince,
Well, Space Cadets, if you're curious, the article is on cadets who like Space Boy Universe. And to see this picture is really kind of cool looking. He's wearing, Roy Orbison, that is, his typical gray suit, strumming that beautiful red guitar. And I don't know. I'm kind of like, another group that's kind of holographic but not holographic is Gorillaz.
Well, they're more animated.
Yeah, they're more.
But they have done some hologram work with Madonna on a live performance.
Right.
Yeah, that was during some music award show. I know what you're talking about.
I mean, that looked cool.
Well, it was cool because she looked like she was walking behind the animation. seamlessly. So I was like, how did they do that? I love turkey too.
How did turkey come up?
In the chat. I think it's because one of the chatters is in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
And in Canada, they celebrate their own Thanksgiving Day, but they do it, I believe, during this month instead of November. So they do it earlier. So they're talking about having Thanksgiving and making turkey. And because I'm a Southerner, I've always lived in the South. I've never lived anywhere else. I'll eat other people's turkey and be like, oh, that was nice. But if you don't give me a Cajun fried turkey, it ain't Thanksgiving. If you've never had one, you don't know what you're talking about.
See, I like my Thanksgiving turkey with good old stuffing with the giblet gravy.
And if I give them the money to buy the turkey and the money for the extra sides, Leanne and her husband will cook us all that stuff.
And then I like the sunbeam
bread rolls.
Bread rolls, and have to have green bean casserole for me.
Well, you've got family that'll do that for you.
But the thing is that these are some of the staples that I love of Thanksgiving turkey.
I agree about the turkey. I only care about the turkey. I don't eat anything else.
I like the cranberry out of the can.
I don't eat none of that crap.
I mean, like, the gelled, it's no cranberries. It's completely jelly. And it comes out of the can, it goes
plop. Yeah, I don't bother with any of that, but I just like...
See, you got me jazzed already thinking about Thanksgiving.
But your family will invite you over for that, and I'll probably go up there. And the only thing I now insist on for Christmas dinner is the Cajun Christmas. I got to have me some fried catfish and, some Southern things like that, and some cornbread. So I now have a place to go for that, which is, again, Leanne's house. Yeah. Well, once you start down the slippery path of smoking turkey, it's a gateway meat.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a gateway meat.
Gateway meat. Anyway, do you want to move on to actual topics? For
yeah, well, I mean, we can keep going. I mean, I like the organicness of our conversation.
Well, I found something that was kind of disturbing-ish.
And what's that?
Windows 10's latest updates is deleting some users' documents.
I know. I heard this from you, and I was like, what?
Okay, so the Windows 10 October 2018, this month, update happened earlier this week. Some users reported serious issues.
Tuesday.
Which, Black Tuesday's always called
that
because
in the tech community, yeah.
In the tech community, because traditionally that's where Microsoft does their Windows updates on Tuesdays. So they posted on Reddit, they posted on Microsoft and some other online forums that Windows 10 users that were doing their updates were seeing some of their documents, photos, and sometimes their entire user profile wiped out after the update. Now, some did find a temporary fix, but it wasn't clear why that was happening. And Microsoft has not started automatically pushing its latest update out. So only people that visit Windows Update manually and check for updates will get it installed. In fact, a number of people are reporting the issues is alarming. Microsoft is currently investigating it. I don't think they've got an official word. So if you don't want to risk it, go back up your stuff right now. Drop everything and go back up your stuff.
You know what I do at work, Solana? Is that I bought a thumb drive, a 128 gig thumb drive. And in Windows, you can point, like, for example, your My Documents, you can tell it where to point, where your My Documents should be. So all the important stuff on my computer points to this thumb drive, so that if it crashes, I can go to any computer, plug in this drive, and I could still see all my documents and all that stuff that's on the computer.
Well, if it's just targeting stuff inside your profile, which I guess My Documents is tied to.
Well, I would think that it's targeting. It'll think one location where, but it's not at that location.
Traditionally, your Documents folder or My Doc. I don't think it's called My Documents anymore.
It's called Documents.
Just called Documents.
They dropped the My part.
Yeah, it's stupid. So that is all tied into, I think, profile, and that is like documents, photos, videos, whatever is underneath that hierarchy in the file structure. So that's what you want to back up. But I don't trust Windows, period. So I not only have to back up that, but pieces on my C drive that I've created for other content that I've made or installed. So don't trust anybody or anything. Back up everything that you care about. Hard drives die all the time.
Do they ever? Hey, we had hashtag trivia this past Tuesday.
Oh.
Yes. I know.
I don't pay attention.
You don't pay attention to anything I do now.
Well, somebody's got to do other things.
I like to read books.
Yeah, books. There's these books that I got to read, and I'll tell you about one in a minute.
And as I look for the trivia question, I believe the question was the event that happened at 3 Mile Island. The nuclear disaster. What state did it take place in?
State?
Yeah, state.
Is that 3 Mile Island?
3 Mile Island, 3 Mile Island. It took place there.
What state did it take in?
What's the state?
The state? Really?
Oh, why? You're giving, I'm sure everybody out there is doing the same thing that you're doing.
Pennsylvania?
Yes, that is the answer.
Thank you, Google.
You're funny. But yeah, Pennsylvania was the answer. So
there's an island in Pennsylvania.
It's called Long Island.
That's New York. Long Island's in New York.
3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
That's the name of the island, I believe.
But if it's in Pennsylvania, where's there an island?
Okay, these are questions you could ask before the show.
Okay, 3 Mile accident occurred March 28, 1979 in reactor number 2 of 3 Mile Island Nuclear Generating Station in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, near Harrisburg.
And why is there...
And there's Carter. There's a picture of Jimmy Carter.
Why is it called Dolphin Island? Are there any dolphins there?
I didn't know there was a reactor there.
Yes.
And we had nuclear stuff.
Took place during the peanut farmers' presidency.
Yes, because I just saw a picture of Jimmy Carter.
Which makes sense. It happened in 79.
I was 7 years old.
Were you? I was 9.
That makes sense because you're older than me.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. But
only by 2-3 years?
Still. It feels like an eternity.
Well, that's way to bring it down.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Are you done?
I'm done. Let's move on. I just wanted now that we put out...
Now we call...
Before, make sure to tune into the Twitter universe. That's the SBU Twitter wall. And we'll be posting... Well, actually, it's more than that. I post the hashtag trivia just about everywhere in the universe. But look for that. And, put your answers in the Twitter for SBU, and we'll see who gets close to it, and try not to use the Google to find out the answer. Try to use your brain. I know you're smart out there, Space Cadets.
Okay.
All right. Now,
are we done with that?
Yes. Go ahead, Solon.
Okay. Now I'm going to do some rapid fire headlines to kill time. Birds tipsy on fermented berries flying into cars' windows in Minnesota town. This is happening, this is dated October 4th. So in Minnesota, birds have flown into windows and cars because they're tipsy on fermented berries. They just had a frost in northeastern Minnesota in the town of Gilbert. And it came a little early, So it sped up the fermenting process on these berries on these trees, right? So they've not migrated south yet. So there was plenty of birds there to get drunk. It appears that it's a lot more drunk birds than in past years due to the weather being late. Some birds are getting a little more tipsy than normal, so these sugars in these fruits ferment into alcohol, and these birds eat the berries because they don't know any better. There's no mention in this article if there's such a thing as bird rehab, or I don't know if they died. I guess they recovered. They're asking residents to call authorities if they see the roadrunner jumping in and out of traffic on Main Street. But, I don't know if the birds appreciate that type of tone when it comes to that. But, yeah, so there you go with that. Now, another thing I found, book returned to Louisiana Library 84 years after it was checked out. So better late than never. A patron returned a book to the Main Street branch. It was checked out in 1934, and this is, guess where? The Shreve Memorial Library. And the book was Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters.
Okay.
And I say Shreve Memorial Library because it's, you know where that is?
Shreveport?
My hometown, Shreveport. Mm-hmm. And of course, it would be the latest book ever returned in my hometown. So, at 84 years after it was checked out, the library said in a comment, maximum charge for overdue books, they keep the fee at $3. So it's not like they had to pay the cost of the book or anything, but it's the latest long overdue book to surface in the U.S.
Some sad news to report. The actor that played Herschel on The Walking Dead has passed away. Scott Wilson, I guess known as Herschel. I know it's kind of a sad thing. I promise that he won't be returning from the dead, though.
Okay. I'm not saying anything because I never watched The Walking Dead. I don't really know what's going on.
I was kind of eyeballing you over there for an eye roll, but, you know, it's like he's bringing up
I'm
Walking Dead.
not going to eye roll over someone's death.
Okay, good.
I'm not a complete monster. Jeez.
Well.
Are you going to keep going? Or?
No, I just wanted to report that. It was in my news report to bring up.
Krispy Kreme in Ireland stops overnight drive-thru due to honking. Apparently there's Krispy Kreme in Ireland. I didn't know that, for one thing. And they have drive-thru service. So the residents that live near the Krispy Kreme complained to Krispy Kreme about the honking cars. It's got a 24-hour drive-thru. That ain't fair. They get a 24-hour drive-thru and we don't.
Do you find yourself going to Krispy Kreme often?
I like the option, but we don't have Krispy Kremes in close proximity. We do have them, but they're not in proximity.
I was going to say, they can't just
because we have Shipley Donuts here.
The store open just in the event that you plan on going to a Krispy Kreme.
So they attract long lines of cars that would honk their horns throughout the night. I don't know why you need to honk your horn in a drive-thru, first of all, but all that honking wakes up the residents because this is at night when it happens, and they got some video footage of the drive-thru where you can hear all these noisy cars. Since the grand opening, we haven't had a proper sleep at night. We have jobs, kids, schools, so many elderly people living in this area as well. Every night the queue for donuts is unbelievable. Lights, noises, pollution, horns, all streets blocked, all cars honking at once, all night, every night. Why are they honking? They said this goes on from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. No, wait, they will have a drive-thru open from 6 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. So they're looking into traffic management. They're trying to make some changes to help the residents not have to hear all that honking. Why do you need to honk at donuts?
Why not?
I don't get
it. Maybe people were like, okay, what's taking so long? I need to get my donuts. And that's why the honking commences. But yeah, I think I would go nuts just thinking about living by a fast food restaurant with the amount of traffic that must go through.
Yes. Well, and that's possible to do in this town because Houston does not have zoning laws. So you could live next to a McDonald's, and depending who was here first, you wouldn't have a leg to stand on to complain about it.
And my day job is at a building that's like right next to townhouses, and all I can think of, because you know the fence is like right up against the housing, and I'm thinking, God, that must suck during the day. That are like, or you know when the traffic starts picking up when people are coming to work, and then of course against that fence you have the utility vehicles like maintenance and things like that. Like, say, for instance, the shredder comes or things like that. Thanks for Solana. I didn't know if you... No, I'm just making a point that must suck tremendously to be that close to a high-activity business of some sort.
Depending which was there first, you or the business, you know.
Anyway, it's the bottom of the hour, folks, and we're here to learn about history and dive into that. And when we come back, we will talk some history, so don't go anywhere.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
This is author Gordon Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Rodney.
So as every Saturday ends, a Sunday becomes us, and we wonder, what are we going to talk about next week? And for some time, I've been wanting to talk about this particular subject of history, because it's so timely as it applies to the events of what's going on in the United States right now. Now, keep in mind, we're not very political when we come on the show here. We try to avoid that because you can always...
It's a volatile topic.
You've got your MSNBC, you've got your Fox News, you've got CNN, you got your Rush Limbaugh, you got all these people out there that are talking politics, and you can go to that show if you want to. What we do is we present history. And then, of course, we commentate on that particular subject and present the evidence as we see it.
This is a political topic. It's a historical topic, but that's going to get mentioned, and I'm going to try to keep it as neutral. The thing is, though, with all research I've ever done on this show, with any topic, I've learned to read when I see bias.
Right.
Even in a scholarly journal article or paper.
There's nothing wrong when calling a duck, you know how the old phrase, if it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck?
But this particular, especially the topic of Joseph McCarthy, I have seen both sides. I've seen advocates and people are saying they're treating it from the historical perspective and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I'll get into that later. But I'll be reading this article and I'm like, well, that terminology seems a bit harsh. How do they justify that? What's their evidence?
Right.
So, I don't know where I stand on this issue.
Really?
I just really don't. And I'll show you why, because it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I'll tell you why, because I did find a couple of articles that were saying that he was a patriot, not a monster. So, we get both sides.
Right.
So you presented this topic to me and said, let's talk about Joseph McCarthy and the concept of McCarthyism. Now, I kind of knew what this was because I watched Bugs Bunny cartoons. And that's how you get most of your post-World War I and II history, is watching early Bugs Bunny cartoons, because they did a lot of topical
satire.
Yeah, they did a lot of topical cartoons back then. It wasn't just Bugs Bunny. It was a lot of them. But and I've had our traditional education with college and whatnot, but I don't recall this topic ever gone to in depth. And unfortunately, I was pressed for time. This is a huge topic because you've got the topic of McCarthy and then McCarthyism, but I've learned something, just a little bit of research I've done. It's tied to bigger issues. It's tied to a bigger overriding piece of history that we're still dealing with. I'm telling you, we're still dealing with the fallout from World War I and II. And I guess that's just our reality. It's like things that happen set certain things into motion that we'll never, I don't know if we'll ever resolve it, but it's part of a larger narrative of our relationship with USSR/Russia and their political mindset and our political mindset.
Would you feel, the old saying that if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it? Would these be one of these postmarks of history?
Yes, we are doomed to repeat it. But if history has been reported incorrectly, then what? And I wanted to tell you, before we get into it, I just happened to glance at this, but I was quickly looking for things to talk about before in the banter section. And I think it ties in well with this topic or any of our history topics. This is a book has just been published called "How History Gets Things Wrong: The Neuroscience of Our Addiction to Stories by Alex Rosenberg. And the book is about why we learn wrong things from narrative history and how our love for stories is hardwired. So basically saying we love stories.
Actually, I posted that article in...
Did you?
Yeah.
I saw it on The Verge first.
That's where I got it from.
Well,
but it's interesting.
I didn't look at you first because I go to The Verge all the time.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to read this book, but it's only available in hardback, and it's like over $18, so I don't think that's going to happen.
1801, 1802,
$18.02 or something like that. I don't have that kind of money right now.
I don't think that's unreasonable price wise, but
this fascinates me because he's saying, if I tell you the story of Napoleon with what I believe is correct, and like 50% of it is incorrect, but you liked what I had to say, you take that as gospel of that's what happened, and you're satisfied, and off you go.
There are movies that do that too as well, and the movie is like, oh wow, that's awesome, that was a great movie, and then you actually go and read the history, and well, it didn't happen like this in the movie.
But you can apply that to this topic, any topic. So if I spin you a tale about how evil this man was, cherry picking things from history, right, I can make a case for that. Was he? I don't know. We'll get into that. So I guess I need to quit beating around the bush.
Come on, Joanna.
So let's talk about Joseph McCarthy. Who was he?
Well, a senator.
Well, he was a politician. He was a senator from 1947 to 1957. But going back a little further with his personal history, just a teensy bit, just to give you an idea of what he's like.
Yeah.
He was from a poor but devout Roman Catholic family. He was the youngest child in his family. Now, his family was agrarian. They had agricultural interests rather than academic ones. And he didn't like being poor, right?
Who doesn't?
So, I'm not enjoying it right now, let me tell you very much, but, I could work to probably do something about that, but So Joseph worked to escape the poverty of his family by farming at a young age, and by the age of 16, he had his own chicken business. It didn't really work out, but he was really industrious. He was very driven and enterprising. And he gave up going to school to have these businesses. So when he turned 20, he started to manage a grocery store, and he was really good at it. He completed in 1 year, he completed 4 years worth of high school. So he's not stupid. He ended up majoring in law in college, so he got into college. Mm-hmm. He was also into poker, big money poker. That was interesting to find out. And so by 1935, he began to be active in politics as a New Deal Democrat, which I find interesting. He starts out as a Democrat, and then he becomes a Republican.
The New Deal referring to FDR.
FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President Roosevelt. So in 1939, Joseph was elected to the nonpartisan office of Circuit Court Judge, because remember, he has that law degree. Mm-hmm. The campaign was bitter, and McCarthy, though victorious, during his campaign, they accused him of dishonesty and using questionable tactics. So it starts here.
Right.
So I'm just saying that is the image we're getting painted of him before he ever starts the crap storm, let's say. He was controversial and an unorthodox judge, and most people believe that he did a fairly good job at it, but he held that position until he entered the Marines in 1942. Mm-hmm. So here's World War II going on, right?
Yeah.
Now, his military career is fraught with some controversy because they believe the experiences he said he had in the military might have been invented by him to further his political career. So maybe he talked himself up, saying, yeah, I did this and I did this in the war, but he didn't actually do this and that. So at some point, Joseph became a Republican, and they don't really have any facts on how, when, or why he did this, but he just went to become a Republican, and he ran in 1944 for a Republican senatorial nomination. He didn't win that nomination in 44, but he ran again in 46 and narrowly defeated his opponent, Robert M. La Follette, however that's pronounced. So that's basically his early career, and he's already getting a reputation.
Right.
Now, one source I read said for his early years as a senator, they're unremarkable and undistinguished. Like nothing of any note happened, or he didn't do anything controversial, or didn't push any laws that were groundbreaking. Just like he just did his job, right?
Right.
So he did that, but he started gaining this reputation of being generally unscrupulous and brash. So here comes 1950. He ran again in 1950 for, I guess, the Senate seat, but it was looking like he wasn't going to win. So he took up the increasingly popular issue of communists in the government. So it started with this speech he had in Wheeling, West Virginia, a Lincoln State speech, at this lady's. It was put on this lady. I'll get more into this. He alleged that there were 205 federal employees that were known to the Secretary of State as communist spies.
Right.
Nevertheless, they're still working in shaping the policy of the State Department. And now, before it ended, 4 more years later, he had become one of the most powerful figures in politics in American national life. So why are we even talking about him? What did he do? Well, he's known for this thing called McCarthyism, based on his last name, McCarthy. Political journalist Richard H. Rovere wrote that in regard to McCarthy, there was no bolder seditionist ever moved amongst us. Now, what's a seditionist, Space Boy? It's not a good person.
No.
That's somebody who's working against the government they're in, So this is of historical significance. Now, McCarthyism, the Red Scare. The historical significance is immense because this is part of a larger narrative about our relationship with the USSR/Russia, which it rebranded itself.
And that Red Scare goes back into the late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. In fact, I think we've successfully talked about another topic coming down the pipe, but there was a famous, I guess you could say, couple that were accused of spying.
We'll get,
so that was what, late 30s? Or late 20s, early 30s?
I can tell you that soon.
Okay.
Tell you, because I didn't know all this was connected. So, and I keep telling you this every time we do a certain topic that I know I come across as a tinfoil hat wearing weirdo. But I'm telling you, this stuff is connected, and it all starts to make sense, especially with history. If I am reading what is the truth that has been written down, let's say, this is all part of a bigger puzzle. And it started with, I guess, World War I, and then II with our feelings with Russia, and it goes over into the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and it comes out. And then now we've got the space race and the Cold War. It's all connected and related, and it almost never ends.
And it's kind of like what I was telling you before, is that during the 20s and the 30s, you have Lenin promoting, I guess, Marxism. And ultimately, you go to war, and then there's the World War II. Once we defeat the Germans, and you create this vacuum of power, and you have two powers that exist on Earth at that time: the United States and Russia. And the rush was to cover as much as the globe with
their ideology.
The ideology, and from an American standpoint of view, there is the communism cannot spread any further than it is.
We were trying to stop that.
We were trying to stop it by any means possible.
And that feeling went all the way into the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
That's how far this went. What, 4 decades?
Yes.
So 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. That's 5 decades.
And a part of that was the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
And of course...
that was a war fought with policy rather than weapons, would you say?
Right, yes.
Okay. Maybe we should do a show on that.
Well,
that'd be too big a topic, though, wouldn't it?
It's another interesting topic, to say the least.
But look, this historical significance of McCarthyism, it's part of that big narrative about our relationship with Russia that's never ended. Now, for a while, McCarthy added fuel to that fire, but he, I think, finally went too far, and they took him down. Now, something else I didn't realize about this time frame in the 1950s is that, you know, you do have the Democrats and the Republicans, but they sort of had an agreement across these party lines about communism, that, yes, communism is the enemy of freedom in the U.S. and around the world. So, hey, they actually agreed on something. Mm-hmm. What do you know? But also that those two parties were not quite the same as we know them now, because they were still kind of evolving in their own respective ways. So they had this agreement: communism is bad. But what's interesting is they had two different takes on that, this fascinates me. Mm-hmm. They had different. I don't know. So it's said that the debate over McCarthyism was a debate about the fundamental nature of American society. That is, to ask, is America a truly open society, or one that could stay true to its ideals while excluding the opinions of some of its members? Now, to illustrate that is, okay, the liberals or Democrats, if you want to call them the same thing, their argument against communism is, yes, it's a totalitarian operation, has no place in a democratic government like ours. Yet, the Democrats felt, did they have a right to deny people the freedom to believe in it, mm-hmm. in communism, if they chose? My argument is, why would you live here and believe in communism? Why don't you just go to where the communism is? Unless you're actively working to infiltrate and bring it here. That's their side of it.
And let me spin it this way. You know, our Constitution gives us the right of freedom of speech. And,
so they were like torn. Like, yeah. It's not good for us, but should we persecute people who mm-hmm. or believe it because they're free to believe it in this country?
Right.
So on the other side, the conservatives or Republicans, you've got it's un-American to believe in it. It's unrealistic to tolerate any anti-democratic ideology. And when I say anti-democratic, I mean it goes against the idea of having a two-party system, because we supposedly live in a democracy. Don't start. We'll get to that later, okay? It's not that it was anti-democrat, it was anti-democratic. Mm-hmm. So here you've got the Democrats saying it's wrong, but are we denying you a civil liberty by trying to root them out and get rid of it? And where the other guys are saying, nope, just get rid of them. Let's just don't. It's end of story, all right? So this McCarthyism was a time of transformation politically for the U.S. Because we just got out of World War II. So now we're not just a big country sitting over here with this. We now became a global superpower. And Eisenhower is the president at this time.
Right.
So
the elderly statement. Ike was fondly revered as our president during that time.
I like Ike.
Yeah, a lot of people liked Ike. Part of his campaign too.
I want to point out at this time he's a Republican. Mm-hmm. He is a Republican. McCarthy is a Republican.
Right.
But you see how this splits the idea of what a Republican is, too.
And you remember our conversation earlier today. Remember who Ike's or Eisenhower's president?
Richard Nixon.
Yeah, vice president.
See, it's all related.
Yes.
Because we did that show on Nixon. Nixon was all upset about protesters and the Korean War?
Korean War, yeah.
Was it the Korean War? Korean War was North Korea attacking South Korea, and who was helping North Korea?
The communists.
The USSR.
And this is when I tied into that conversation about
related.
The global expansion of the communist empire. And it was the American ideology at that time is to stop, or the policy, to stop the communist spread throughout the globe.
And I'll tell you why they were trying to do this, why they had that fear. I can give you a quick definition of McCarthyism, and then we can
take a break.
Yeah. The definition I found, the first one, is McCarthyism is the national furor of divisive concern and suspicion regarding alleged communism in American government. For 4 years, McCarthy was a dominant figure in American political life, striking fear in his components and confusion into the public mind. That seems like a biased statement to me, but it could have been true. And we'll kind of go back and forth on that. And I'm going to give you when we get back, I'm going to give you a historical background, what's going on around this right before McCarthy does his thing.
Okay. You heard Solana. We'll be back right after this.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Solana.
Hey, Solana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe.
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Ron.
All right, we're back. Just had to down some water there. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to keep the old
pipes and
watered down. I hate the cough during the program. As I've taken note of the season 3 opener, that a lot of y'all were concerned about the cough I had at the beginning of this year, and believe me, I was.
Why do we keep talking about it? It was an epic cough.
It was.
It went on and on and on and on. He would mute his mic, but ambient sound can be picked up with my mic. Of course, there's the same mics, and so he couldn't really. Other than leave the room and go 2 rooms away, there was no way to not hear him.
I was going to say, as many as y'all know, that the studio doesn't have a separate room for Solana, but I'm sure she would love that.
It's not a professional studio. It's just a room in a house.
That's been done up in the theme of the SBU.
It's got a space theme. We've got black walls with stars and planets and nebula that we painted, and we dressed it up, and it looks like maybe a studio, but it's just a room.
I do like K28's comment about all it's missing is the an arcade Space Invaders in here.
If we had the room,
that is
money.
That is kind of cool, though. I could imagine arcade Space Invaders in here.
Yeah, I want a pinball game.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yes, so, where were we? So we're talking about Joseph McCarthy, McCarthyism, and the larger narrative this fits in. And the fact that misinformation exists with historic topics even to this day. So I want to give you the background of where America's mindset is just before Joseph McCarthy comes into the spotlight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, World War II just happens. It ended in the fall of 1945, right? So, naturally, there was a bit of paranoia about the Soviet Union, the Red Menace. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe there was a legit paranoia. Because then, just 5 years down the road, you've got the Soviet Union is helping to establish the People's Republic of China and then back North Korea for that war by giving them support and weapons or whatever, money maybe. So maybe those fears about communism were justified. We just got out of a war with these people. So, and who were their allies were Japan, which is not necessarily a capitalist society, Russia, and you've got, of course, you've got Germany. But the thing is, what gets me is, I don't think Hitler's views lined up with that of Russia. I think they kind of clashed. It would be a matter of who wins between them. If they had won, I think there would be a fallout between communism and Nazism, because I don't think they quite lined up enough for them to stay as allies. I don't know, maybe. But anyway, so post-war Soviet Union still expanded into Eastern Europe. So maybe there's this fear, that's where America gets this fear about Russia's plans for the rest of the world to rule the world with communism, including America. Now, this idea of the witch hunt for communists in America, in our government, the Red Scare, was not invented by Joseph McCarthy. It wasn't all his idea. But he just happened to bring it to the national and international attention in a big way. So, let's go back to 1938 real quick. In 1938, you have this thing called the House of Un-American Activities Committee, which I didn't even know existed. That was created in 38. Now, what's interesting about that committee, it had had several names before that and gone through different iterations, but for the same reasons. This committee investigated alleged disloyalty and subversive activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and organizations that were suspected of having communist ties. So this paranoia about communism fed into, them having this committee. And that was in place well before McCarthy ever came along, but he sort of capitalized on it. This committee, like I said, went through different iterations, and they even attacked the Roosevelt administration, believe it or not. And they came back into play after World War II due to fear and contempt of the Soviet Union, of course. Mm-hmm. So there was already a slight hysteria, paranoia in place, just an unease and a worry about Soviet Union and communism. So it's not like we can blame it all on McCarthy, all right? Just keep that in mind.
Right, the scare was there.
It's already there. So this committee had the power to subpoena witnesses and pressure them to surrender names and any other information that could lead to communists and their sympathizers. You could even get branded as a red if you refused to comply. So it was just really, I feel like a paranoia-driven witch hunt, in a way. And it was in 1947, again, before McCarthy came into play, 1947, that the HUAC, which is their acronym, created that Hollywood blacklist. They went after entertainers and professionals in the entertainment industry who were suspected that their work was communist inspired. And I'll get a little bit more into that later, because I have a section called the people who were affected by, the Red Scare. So 47 to 50s, this was a volatile time politically. Everybody was paranoid, and, these committees this committee, the Un-American Committee, their techniques and their questioning style did serve as the model for which Joseph McCarthy would use to conduct his investigative hearings in the early 1950s. So here we are. You've got this sense of dread starting in 46 about communism spreading across the world. I think it might have been a legit dread. It was happening. Now, how did all this stuff start with McCarthy? Well, he was concerned when somebody came to him they came to him with this FBI document that came out in 1949. They had gone to different senators, and I guess they ignored them or dismissed this document. And this document from the FBI listed names of people who were known to be active in the Communist Party, and they were deep inside U.S. government agencies. So these other senators were approached about this document to, take up the banner and look at it and bring it to light. But no one took it seriously until they approached Joseph McCarthy. So he didn't actively seek this out. He was found. So in 1950, he's got this document, or he's read it, right? McCarthy goes to the Ohio County Women's Republican meeting in Wheeling, West Virginia. What were the Ohio women doing in West Virginia? I don't know. That's sort of baffling to me. So McCarthy gave a speech here that launched him into the national spotlight with the beginning of McCarthyism. Now, at this speech, Joseph waved this piece of paper in the air, declaring he had a list of 205 known members of the Communist Party who were working and shaping policy in the state Senate department. Now, at first, the American public embraced him over this, but more of his colleagues opposed him, mostly because he was accusing everyone who was his colleague as communist. That's probably why they didn't like him. So that goes on. And over the next month after this speech he makes, a Senate subcommittee launches to investigate what he said, his claims. Lo and behold, they didn't find any proof of subversive activity, but there were spies. There were. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, I got to the point where eventually McCarthy's tactics, he goes on and on and on. And they got disapproved, and you're like, oh, where's the president and all this? Where's Eisenhower? What's he got to say? Eisenhower never came out and said anything officially about McCarthy and what he was doing because, quote, Eisenhower said he didn't want to get down in the gutter with this guy. Keep in mind they're both Republicans, by the way. McCarthy kept at it during his second term as senator. He kept at these going after Russians, not Russians, but any communists or communist sympathizers. He got put in charge of a committee on government operations. Well, so he's got on this committee, so this let him have a little bit of a further reach into investigating alleged communist infiltration into the government. And he was in hearing after hearing where he aggressively interrogated witnesses in a way that blatantly violated civil rights. And despite having any real proof, 2,000 government employees lost their jobs as a result of his investigations. That's what I read. Now, I tried to listen to the actual hearings because, you know what? They were televised. But, of course, this being 1950, whatever, the quality is poor and you can barely make anything out. So I just like, I'll just keep doing the research. What are you doing over there?
I don't know what happened there. I was going to say, were they in that transatlantic talk when they were doing, when you were watching it, like the newsreels?
No, it was just like a boring old hearing, but the quality, it was in black and white. And the audio was so distorted.
Right.
I guess because the archival process is not up to par yet. But at this point in my research, I stopped to wonder, what were Joseph McCarthy's motivations here now? I couldn't figure it out. It was like, was he just trying to make a name for himself politically so he could further his political aspirations and move higher up from senator to whatever to maybe presidential candidate? And there's debate on both sides that say, yeah, he wanted to be president. And others like, no, he never thought that. He was just trying to do this one thing, get the communists outed. He did make a name for himself. I don't know if it's the one he wanted. Now, I was thinking, was he trying to be seen as a hero patriot? And that's it, because, he did serve in the military. Or was he just an evil perverse person that got in a position of power and it corrupted him? He was described by some as reckless and a lone wolf. Now, it's interesting now to me when I research a historical topic that has happened more than 30 years ago. I find that things repeat themselves, or there's some things that have been with us forever, and we think it's just a now problem. In doing this research, I find that it's interesting, because we now live in a world where we're talking about fake news and post-truth. And when I say, we talked about what post-truth was when we talked about Bilderberg. The truth does not matter now. Facts do not matter. It's who's the first person to accuse someone of something? Who's the first person that gets their feelings hurt and can post it on social media? That's all that matters. And if your feelings are hurt, oh my God, stop the world. We gotta fix it. Anyway. Now, McCarthy had his issues with the media, news media back then. McCarthy accused journalists of using, quote, cheap sensationalism and presenting cliches and slogans instead of facts. Does that sound familiar to you? See, fake news has been with us forever. It's not a new phenomenon. We just notice it more because the internet and social media. It's in your face, it's in your face, it's in your face.
There's a movie that I'm recommending called Good Luck and Goodnight. And it's about Robert Murrow and a reporter.
Robert Murrow or
yeah.
Edward R. Murrow?
Thank you, Edward.
He's going to come up twice here, and I'm going to ask you about that.
And I wanted to just throw that out there. You know how I like to throw little things out there before you get to them.
Yeah, it pissed me off. I'm gonna have you start reading the notes before we go on the air. Now, here's a quote I want to give you.
I'm listening.
About the news media or journalists at this period in time of McCarthy.
Okay, not this period of time.
No, but during this 50s.
Okay.
Those who covered McCarthy's every move inevitably became his co-conspirators. As one of them, Murray Kempton, later said, "In the end, I did not feel any cleaner than he was. I pretended once again, now and then, that McCarthy was not a serious man, but I always knew that the devil in me and the larger devil in him were very consequential figures indeed." And this person that wrote that quote says, "It's a mistake journalists repeated in 2016. See, it's been with us forever. Mm-hmm. Now, flash forward to April 1954. McCarthy turns his attention to the military. And by now, the support of McCarthyism is just beginning to dwindle. He's no longer invulnerable, and his credibility is being questioned because there's some evidence that he tried to win preferential treatment for his political aides when they were drafted in the military. Probably not the worst thing in the world, but still, that's, your character gets called in question, The thing about it is, these Army hearings were televised. So Americans got to watch as McCarthy intimidated witnesses, offered evasive answers, and then when he questioned them, during this, there's this famous moment. McCarthy attacked a young Army lawyer, and the Army's chief counselor came back at him and said, "Have you no sense of decency, sir?" The Army McCarthy hearing struck many observers as a shameful moment in American politics. When these hearings were finally all over, that's when McCarthy lost all his allies. The Senate voted to condemn him for his inexcusable, reprehensible, vulgar, and insulting conduct. So that's probably on record somewhere. We'll take that as a fact. Now, he kept his job in the Senate, but any power or influence he had as a senator was gone. He did die in 57, only at the age of 48. But how did they actually stop McCarthyism? Now, this, you have to understand, he was going after people what seemed like in a ruthless manner that violated civil liberties. And he actually ended up kind of dividing the Republican Party because of all this. Recall the president's a Republican. McCarthy attacked the executive branch as well. He didn't spare anybody. He was trying to get all these supposed communists out of the government.
And pause there for a second because I wanted to point this out. You bring up a good point about earlier you talked about, was he running for president? Did he have aspirations of running for the presidency? Well, if I was going to run for presidency, I would want to make sure to paint the administration in a bad light. And sure enough, that's what he went out to do, and saying, as you're about to discuss, painting in a bad light. So to me, it seems to me that he had a vision to become president, or wanting to become president.
Maybe so. Maybe because I'm trying to find out I'm trying to figure out what his motivations would be, and it's just there's no proof, one way or another, what his motivations were.
He kept his cards close.
He wasn't stupid, but maybe he was braggadocious.
Did you hear what I just said, though?
What?
He kept his cards close to his vest.
Yeah.
And think about that. Remember in his early days?
Poker player.
He was a poker player. So
poker face.
Yeah.
So he went after the executive branch, meaning the president's people and the president. But the problem is Eisenhower was very well liked by the entire country, so that didn't go over well. You can imagine, even though the president never publicly went after McCarthy. So here's a series of events that led to his downfall. One of the first strikes McCarthy that started to take him down is McCarthy appointed this guy called J.B. Matthews as his research director in 1953. So Matthews publishes this article called Reds in Our Churches, where he referred to the Protestant clergy as, quote, the largest single group supporting communists in America. As you can imagine, this created public outrage from Matthew and McCartney. You go after somebody's religion, that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you to glance at the chat there, Spaceboy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't until after McCarthy's Army hearings that things started to really go downhill for McCarthy. So the next strike against him is when he began investigating the Army Signal Corps Laboratory at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And this was, again, in 53. Now here, the laboratory employed many Jewish engineers from New York. Many civilian employees were there. They were members of the left-leaning populist front. I didn't look that up. In fact, check this out. Julius Rosenberg once worked there. The guy who was accused of treason, and his wife were executed. So many of the workers at this Army Corps lab were inspected and cleared by the government, and the Army was already re-examining the entire workforce in 53. Nevertheless, McCarthy comes in and insists on opening up an investigation into this matter. Eventually, he gave up the investigations after months of quarreling with the Army, so I'm guessing it was a losing battle for McCarthy. Next strike against him is McCarthy goes after this Army dentist called Irving Perez. He invoked the Fifth Amendment when he started filling out the Army questionnaire, I guess, to get into the Army. And it was a while, I guess they didn't find this out, so they went back and looked at his paperwork, and they discharged Perez. But not before they had promoted him to the rank of major, before they dismissed him. Mm-hmm. So Joseph comes and says he launched this campaign to protest the fact that Perez got promoted. So he interrogated General Ralph Zwicker, and he demanded that the general should reveal some more names, because Zwicker refused to because he could not violate the executive order. In response, McCarthy said rudely and insulted the general by comparing his intelligence to that of a 5-year-old child. So McCarthy's treatment of the general generated a lot of hostility from the press and the American public. So this is strike 3. He's not out yet. This is the next one. So he's not making any friends, and so in retaliation for McCarthy's investigation, the Army accused McCarthy's aide, Roy Cohn, of trying to force the Army into giving special treatment to his friend. This is why I was saying they accused McCarthy of trying to get preferential treatment for his political aides when they went into the military. That's what that was about. Now, recall, America's watching all this on television, these hearings, for 2 months. This guy is going after, I guess, what seems like ruthless attacks, calling people names. Some materials I researched, I cannot help think they're biased one way or another, either for or against. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm seeing factual, historical truth. I just don't know. But some of this I'm going to put down to the hysteria of the time. Maybe they're couched in that framework. So this comment came up. When that comment came up, you have no sense of decency during that hearing. That was the nail in the coffin for McCarthyism. America had finally had enough of it. And the research that talked about the hearings, the televised hearings, said McCarthy was seen as cruel, manipulative, and reckless. And that the hearings were not the only components that eroded his credibility. Early in the year, now, I had just read that Edward R. Murrow had praised Joseph McCarthy early on. Now, Edward R. Murrow aired a documentary that showed how McCarthy's charges were groundless and how he had used bullying techniques to harass individuals. So on December 2nd, the Senate voted to censure McCarthy by a margin of 67 to 22. So Murrow praised him, and then he went, he's full of crap. Interesting. Somebody else that stood up against McCarthy at this time while it was going on, and this is just sort of like a side note, but I found it to be interesting before we go to break. Margaret Chase Smith was a freshman senator from Maine. She never mentioned McCarthy by name in her speech, but it's clear who she was criticizing. So she gave this speech, I guess, to Congress, where she said, "It is high time we stop thinking politically as Republicans and Democrats about elections and started thinking patriotically as Americans about national security based on individual freedom." But she also acknowledged that Truman's administration didn't do enough to try to stop the spread of communism in the world. But she said all politicians need to stand in defense of civil liberties. Now, that's the problem with McCarthy, is he seems like he stomped all over your civil liberties. It was a remarkable moment, not only because Smith was a woman or the first person to speak out against McCarthy, but she was willing to speak out against her fellow Republicans when she saw something that was wrong.
And I think that's so timely for today, too, because right now, what do we have? We have people that are so, like, I'm a Democrat, and there's nothing you can do to change my mind, or I'm a Republican, and there's nothing you can do to change my mind.
That is valid. I'm going to get into that. There's a term for that.
And quite frankly, I think that's the problem. We need to start thinking more like Americans and stop thinking of this,
Oh, I'm not going to talk about that till the other thing. No,
they're doing this and blah, 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 and they did this, blah, blah, blah.
That's because people lack emotional maturity.
You're absolutely right. And this lady that you spoke of,
Margaret Chase Smith,
yes, has hit a nail on the coffin right there in regards to.
Well, I think she had a good thing to say. That's why I wanted to quote her.
Well, so let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, more Space Boy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt and Bot vs. Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot.
You're terminated.
Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production.
You're listening to Space Boy Universe.
listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
All right, we're back. And, Sir Lana, you want to pick back up?
Sure. I had to bring up a website that's supporting this, so I didn't feel like copy-pasting it.
Gotcha.
I want to talk about who was affected by McCarthyism, or if not McCarthy, that committee, the HUAC, or just this whole Red Scare.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was private citizens, government employees, for sure, the military, because we saw him go after these people. There were other government agencies, actors, musicians, writers. Well, it turns out, though, there were Russian spies in our government, or at least sympathizers in the Senate, or at least people serving who were friends with that were later exposed as spies. So, you know, maybe you weren't a communist, but you're friends with somebody who is, you know. So, and just to tell you who that might be, Russian spies in the McCarthy era: Dorothy Kenyon, Esther Braunauer, Gustavo Duran, Harlow Shapley, Frederick Schumann, John Stewart Service, Owen Lattimore, T.A. Bisson, Jan Groover, had an airtight case, wiretaps, Solomon Adler, Nathan Gregory, Silver Master, Lachlan Curry, Harry Dexter White, Harold Glacier, V. Frank Coe. These were paid spies. David Carr, Rosenberg Spy Ring, Army Signal Corps Intelligence Agency, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, Annie Lee Moss, Aaron Coleman, Barry Bernstein, Robert Oppenheimer, maybe.
The Rosenbergs were definitely...
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Leonard Mins, Cedric Belfrage, Mary Jane Keeney, Franz Newman, Theodore Geiger, William Marks Mandel. William Marks Mandel. It couldn't possibly be, Alger Hiss. Now, you may have heard that name.
Mm-hmm.
He was already convicted. His name came up multiple times. Apparently, the Truman administration bungled that one. But others that were gone after in this Red Scare were Democrats. Some were a list of people who used to work for or never even worked for the State Department. In fact, they said if you were showing up to work drunk or just incompetent, you could end up on this list. You're suspicious. If you're not a moral, upright, card-carrying, flag-waving, it really seems extreme, doesn't it? It just seems very extreme. So if you're on the stand at these hearings, which is not I'm understanding a hearing is not a trial. Is there a difference? So hearings, that you could get questioned in great detail all the way back to what activities you did 10 years prior to this hearing.
Sound familiar? Well, maybe not for you because you didn't really follow the Kavanaugh thing. But
I was busy doing this. But that does come into play. We'll get into that in just a second. Because I'm going to bring this to the modern era in a minute, right? Well, when we conclude. So, in fact, if you're being questioned by McCarthy and you plead the Fifth Amendment, McCarthy said, well, that's proof positive you're a communist because you won't talk.
Right.
Now, it's said that well-known people were targeted for either being communist, having communist leanings, or being a sympathizer or some kind of tie or involvement. Charlie Chaplin, Langston Hughes. Now, Langston Hughes was an African-American writer. He was involved in some communist-supported groups, but he wasn't a party member. But he was instantly suspicious, Of course, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed, some say without enough evidence. Some say that if the Rosenbergs were put on trial today, they would not have faced the death penalty. But I think that's just because we live in a time where we're not so quick to kill people like that. Helen Keller was suspected. She was a little radical in her political thinking. I'm also wondering if that's because she was a woman. But The FBI monitored her because she sent a loving birthday greeting to Elizabeth Flynn, who was a communist leader, Leonard Bernstein, the composer and conductor, Burl Ives, Pete Seeger, openly had ties to Communist Party. He was into the movement, but he later apologized for not seeing Stalin as the cruel misleader that he was. Seeger was sentenced to 10 years in jail over all this, but the conviction was overturned later. They suspected Orson Welles. The FBI had Welles, watched. Mm-hmm. And they said, if anything goes down in America, if we go under a national emergency, grab Welles and put him in custody. Well, it didn't happen. So what I have found in all this research, there were 2 articles I found in favor of McCarthy and what he did and what he stood for. I wasn't expecting to find that. So the one that I got the most meat out of was, I'll go and tell you the name and title, McCarthyism, a term that libels a dead man, a dead patriot, by Stephen Byas, and I'm going to assume that's bias. And isn't that a hilarious last name? No disparagement on the article's author, but just maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. I don't know what else to say. So this article, Bias or Best, states that McCarthy was actually a patriot because he was just trying to protect his country from a totalitarian menace. That's a difficult word to say. I'm sorry, totalitarian. And even now, the ghost of McCarthyism keeps coming up with what went down with the allegations over Trump's election and Russia's supposed involvement in it. Meaning, I guess Russia wants Trump to be president. I don't think they were trying to stop it, if I'm reading that right. This article says, people invoke the idea of McCarthyism to modern political topics incorrectly because they've never really studied McCarthyism or fact-checked. That's probably true. No one fact-checks, really. And people are just simply reciting half-remembered phrases and the standard liberal line about him. So this article goes on to suggest that historically, McCarthy has been libeled and smeared by liberals. So the only thing I can equate this with is history is written by the victor.
It usually is.
I don't know if that applies in this case. I don't know. This is a tricky thing. Was he ruthless, reckless, brash, unscrupulous, harsh, a violator of civil liberties? I wasn't there. I don't know. I only know what I have found, and I don't know if what I've found is impartial. You know what I'm saying? So this article says what we know of him is a fictionalized version of an arch villain. But by the time I finish this, I'm like, well, why don't you marry him? So this bias says that McCarthy, the idea that McCarthy terrorized the country for 5 years got established in our minds as Americans, but it just wasn't true. He says that McCarthy's efforts were actually just a man who was concentrating on getting the communists out of sensitive positions in the government. I have some questions about that. McCarthy, when he got that document from the FBI document, he was troubled by that and the fact that the Truman-led administration did not take any action to get rid of spies in our government when Truman was in office. This historian wrote that McCarthy actually underestimated the number of active Soviet agents in the country. So it wasn't that McCarthy was wrong that there were spies. It's just maybe the way he went about it was not quite right.
Something
to say?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like if I do something wrong, and I go about it by not doing it quite right, is it still wrong? I mean,
no. Look, if there's spies in your government, and that's wrong. And you're trying to get rid of them, but you go about it in the wrong way.
I guess, and if you look at it in the perspective of, he knew that there were spies there. He tried to clean house. But the problem is that we're innocent until proven guilty. And I think in his situation,
you notice how the world's changed now? We're guilty until we're proven innocent, and that doesn't change anything.
God, don't even.
Okay, well, we could get to that with this other part later.
I mean, yes, but yeah.
There's a part 2 to this large topic, believe it or not. So if they're only trying to stop communism, whether it's McCarthy or that committee that came before him, why did they? And you're concerned about people being communists that are in roles of power in policy-making positions like the government or government agencies. Why did they go after celebrities, musicians, and writers? They're not in positions of power, are they? Just think about it for a minute. Now, what's funny, not funny, haha, but funny, weird, strange, there was a huge debate at the time whether there were 57 or 205 communists in our government, rather than the fact there were communists in the government. So they debated over how many there were, not the fact that they're there and they need to get gone. That sounds like something that would happen right now. You get so hung up on the minutia, you don't see, like, doesn't matter, they're there, let's get rid of them. You know what I'm saying? So we've had this stupid mindset for a long time. It's not just a modern problem, postmodern problem, if you want to put it that way. So Bias goes on to say, McCarthy, the fact that he terrorized the country is a lie. He said, whatever McCarthy said, no one was wounded, injured, killed, arrested without warrant, held, imprisoned, or put on trial during McCarthy's time. I'm like, well, when did they kill Ethel and Rosenberg and her husband?
I thought that was the 1930s.
Was it? But that's still under the whole Red Scare.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe it wasn't McCarthy's. But he said, during Woodrow Wilson's time, 1,000 people went to prison under the Espionage Act. And then Roosevelt's executive order to arrest American citizens of Japanese ancestry without warrants, indictments, or hearings was worse than anything that McCarthy ever did. Maybe so. He says, worse things have happened to American citizens than McCarthyism.
True. But you can't, just because, yeah, sure, we sent the Japanese into internment camp type situations. Now it would be like the equivalent of these videos we see of these FEMA facilities that supposedly they're going to put all the people in. It was very similar to that.
You know what fascinates about that is maybe not on topic, is the FEMA conspiracy things, FEMA camp conspiracy things, like how it's tied to this mysterious closings of Walmarts. Right. That's like, oh, there's plumbing problems. Oh, there's plumbing problems in like 85 Walmarts across the country. I'm like, would you all get the same crappy supplier or something? And that they're closing Walmarts to make them into camps. Like, I don't know if that's any fact.
Well,
but
the thing is that, yeah, sure, we sent the Japanese Americans into these camps, and FDR did this.
But we could be going to those same camps now just because we don't agree with something.
Exactly. But
they're coming after you and I first, because now they have all this evidence.
The thing is that I want to point out here is, referring, that was a terrible thing that America did. And there's a lot of other terrible things that the government's doing that we don't know.
We're it's guilty. It's
like
guilty of stuff.
Example of, I believe there was a government study where they infected Black Americans with syphilis.
MK Ultra, LSD experimentations.
Oh yes, I mean, you talk to Solaris Blue Raven. I mean, there's tons of stuff that is out there that she's been affected by, and that the American government has been behind.
They've gassed a community,
and then you got to put that on a scale, and do you think McCarthyism is in that phrase? Yeah, I think in the sense that it is, because quite frankly, you give somebody the power.
You put him in the grand scheme of everything you just mentioned. He's not the worst thing that's happened.
Is he a Hitler of America? No, probably not. Did he do a lot of negative energy and perpetuate the fear that America was already in? I mean, let's compare another time frame. 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
As a country, came together, which was interesting to see.
But I feel like that was carefully engineered.
But what you have out of that is that you have the fear was tapped into, and
they used it.
Let's ban all Muslims from coming into the United States.
Let's go bomb them back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a similar situation where... sorry, I'm getting a little frog in my throat here. But yeah, so it's that similar situation. A lot of Americans got hurt in the process.
And what interested me about this, I mentioned this before, is Edward R. Murrow praised Joe McCarthy and said McCarthy is the senior patriot of the nation, and then a little bit later on he's like, he denounced him and all the tactics he used, and so he went the other way. So he changed his mind about McCarthy. I think that's interesting. So, following Senator McCarthy's censure, however, his subsequent departure from the Senate, the American public was really tired of this red baiting, the red scare, and the techniques employed by that committee and McCarthy, right? So the work of that committee continued to decline in importance throughout the 50s and into the early 60s until the committee itself was renamed the House Internal Security Committee in 69, prefiguring eventually it was just disbanded in 75. But look how long it stuck around. That's a long time. 38 to 1975. Wow. Some other facts I uncovered about this time period in American politics is it was during the era of McCarthyism that the ideological struggles of conservatives and liberals took shape, and the things that got laid down in this era influenced politics beyond 1960. I also realized that whatever happened in World War II and whatever happened afterwards for all its politics and policy reached all the way through the 60s and probably into the 80s, even though that war ended in the fall of 1945. So you got that, and then you've got the Red Scare and McCarthyism, and then you've got that feeling that, well, we better prepare ourselves. And you see these historical documentaries in black and white where they're instructing school children to get under,
duck and
cover. And I was like, you always wonder, where the heck did that come from? Well, this is part of this narrative of they're still coming for us.
Duck and cover ain't gonna save your butt.
You. No, that's just giving you something to do while you're dying. So you've got that in the 50s, right after. So there's this feeling they're still coming for us, the communists.
Right.
They're going to bomb us. Now we have hydrogen bombs and atomic bombs.
Civil defense, you had the bomb shelters.
So that's in the 50s, and you've got the bomb shelters. And so there's still a fear.
Right.
Now here come the 60s, and you've got Kennedy.
Right.
He's still perpetuating this. Oh, well, we got to get on top of this and don't let the Russians win at anything. We got to get to the moon before they am, just to show them blah, 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 which I thought was all some kind of chest-beating tactic, but it all fits in with what is going on. Like, we can't let communism win in any aspect, even something as insignificant, it seems, is going to the moon. Like, well, what difference does that make? So that is the Cold War beginning, I suppose, in the 50s, 60s. And you think about it, we developed those deadly weapons in the Second World War, and now you've got nuclear bombs after all that. And all those drills and old film footage, and then, like you said, bomb shelters. So we really felt this another invasion was imminent. And then we get the nukes, and then here comes Reagan with Star Wars. We still feel like we could be attacked by Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So that anti-communism is going all the way into the 80s. Remember movies like Red Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go away. That's 5 decades of being worried. I don't know if they're our biggest problem anymore or not. So, kind of my sum up thoughts on this. What strikes me about this topic is how easy would it be to replicate this now. Quicker, faster, because we've got social media, and we can get into that when we come back from the break. So, something similar to a Red Scare, since we live in this post-truth world where facts and truth don't matter. It's all about who accuses who first, whose feelings gets hurt first, who cries the loudest about it. And because if you have a different opinion, even if you're logical and calm about it, you're a monster because you don't agree. And it would just so be easy to have this Red Scare phenomenon now because we've got the internet to move things out quickly. And it all goes back to that fake news thing. And we can even take the concept of McCarthyism to the current news with the Kavanaugh appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you take that over if you want to when we come back.
Okay.
This is Patrick Scott Spore, and you're listening to Space Boy Universe.
You are listening to Space Boy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Space Boy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Space Boy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Solanas Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Space Boy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
All right, a very fascinating topic tonight. And
it actually was. Mm-hmm. I just feel bad that real life took up so much of my time, the real job and some other things I got to get done. I did not have the time to devote to the research.
Speaking of which, it's that time of the month where we push the fundraising thing for SBU. If you go to spaceboyuniverse.com.
Sorry, I just had a flashback of the PBS marathons.
I'm sorry you won't get a tote bag, but at least you'll have the wonderful knowledge of knowing that Spaceboy Universe will continue out there. And so spaceboyuniverse.com, go to the... I love that, Solana. And go donate what you can. In fact, there's a donation of $1 too. I mean... we'll take $1, and you'll phrase, I'll buy that for $1.
It's from Robocop.
Yeah, every little bit counts. So if you can donate, that'll be great to keep the universe alive. We'll keep it going, and, with your support. And you have our thanks for that.
Because it costs money to run this program. And that's why some nights we have the call-in available, some we don't. When we don't, it's like, well, we don't really have the funds to run call-in studio tonight, so that's why.
Plus, it helps buy materials, like when we need to get a book or something. I
want to read that book and talk to you about it, but I can't afford it right now, so.
So maybe some future...
You'll have to go read it yourself now.
At some future point. All right, so...
This topic about McCarthyism fits in this larger story about our political... relationship and history with USSR, which has been rebranded to Russia. I don't know who they're fooling with that. Mm-hmm. But you had brought this to my attention. You had found this online article / PDF. And it is a PhD candidate's scholarly article abstract that he's submitting as part of his, he wants to be a PhD. You have to do this.
Should I give it some more content?
Yes. What it's about. Tell them what it's about.
It's about Star Wars. We've reached a point now. Before you turn off the channel, ladies and gentlemen, please note that this really kind of ties in a little bit with what we're talking about.
No, it ties in a lot, actually.
Yeah, and so,
You won't think so, but we will.
This document was submitted by this guy, and it really... It got my goat in the sense that...
yeah, you read it one way, and I read it a different way.
And then, of course, the guy tweeted at Ryan Johnson. And if you're not familiar who Ryan Johnson is, he is the director behind the great mega hit, The Last Jedi. Star Wars, The Last Jedi, that I've been griping about. And it's got the fandom all up in a tizzy because of, and Solana and I have discussed about this movie, and saw. I kind of showed her what I was talking about.
He made me watch the film.
Pointed things out in the movie, and then said, "Does that sound, or does this part seem like?"
Yeah, you told me your feelings and thoughts about the movie, then just pressured me to watch it.
What?
And I watched it, and I went, "Huh."
Yeah.
That's all I said about it.
Wait until we watch Solo together.
I don't know that I want to see that. Anyway, just because it seems like a boring waste of time. Anyhow, so you said, could you read this PhD candidate's document? And I did find a typo and one place where he didn't capitalize a word. So good luck on your paper submission.
I want to throw this out because, Solana is an English major.
Yeah, I'm a little harsher when it comes to reading academic stuff. So.
Yeah, so I didn't want it, for me to
just
read
in case you think I'm being a snot. Mm-hmm. Maybe I am. I currently do have a 4.0 in a master's degree that I haven't finished.
So go ahead and what are
some of I just have a bullet point list of what my reactions were. Now, this is let me see. The title is "Weaponizing the Haters: The Last Jedi and the Strategic politicization of pop culture through social media manipulation. That's the title of this guy's document.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that he's using the phenomenon of Star Wars The Last Jedi's social media. He's saying that you've got your regular fans who are genuinely upset, and then you've got trolls who just want to keep things alive. If you don't know what an internet troll is, please go Google that real quick. And then you've got bots who are not real people. They're algorithms and programs that keep things going automatically. And then you've got some other things called sock puppets, and I didn't know what they meant. I know what a sock puppet is, but I'm thinking it must mean something different in the framework of social media, internet. Sure enough, it does, so I'll get to that. Okay, my first impressions of this are, basically what he's saying is that there are things out there deliberately manipulating social media by putting tweets and things out there to cause discord and disruption on purpose. And mainly he's saying this is coming from Russian accounts. So now do you see how this ties in with everything we're talking about tonight? This is our ongoing relationship culturally, politically, with USSR/Russia. We'll just call it Russia from now on. That's what they're calling themselves now, right, Russia? Okay, first thing that struck me is, one, I didn't know there was a crowdfunded campaign to remake The Last Jedi. That's because I'm no longer a fan. There was also a campaign to have The Last Jedi struck from the Star Wars canon. That's how bad people didn't like it. So, and I'd heard this. This is what you were upset about. This is what came down through, I guess, Lucasfilms or Disney or Kennedy.
KK.
If you didn't like The Last Jedi, that means you're a white, misogynistic male.
Mm-hmm. Crybaby.
I didn't like it because it was boring.
Who lives in their mother's basement.
He's just quoting what was said. He proposes in this document that the Last Jedi conflict is not just fans arguing amongst each other about this, but a deliberate manipulation of politically motivated operators, that's a quote, on the level of that election scandal that the Russians manipulated it so Trump would win. He's saying it's the same thing. With the goals of disruption and persuasion. So he's saying there's more going on here to some people not liking a movie. There's an agenda against those who didn't like the movie, and that they're jumping on that to create something. Now, I think he goes into, the whole Star Wars canon, saying that you should not be surprised that Star Wars, all of them, has had some kind of message. Maybe you just didn't see it. It says Star Wars originally was a commentary on the Vietnam War, where you've got the Empire as the evil, oppressive, technologically advanced empire over these less advanced worlds, being, Vietnam and whatnot. The rebels, And that this new trilogy, which I'm saying you've got 1, 2, and 3, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So that's the last trilogy would be 7, 8, and 9.
Right.
Which 9 hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's actually being filmed right now as we speak.
So the new trilogy expresses left-leaning sentiments. But he's saying you're nutty if you hadn't seen that before. So he goes on to say that after Disney's acquirement of Lucasfilms in 2014, there has been this effort, it seems, to have a strong female protagonist. Now, I stopped things right there and I said, okay, since 2014, what the heck was Princess Leia in 3, 4, 5?
And also in the Clone Wars, you have Ahsoka.
Yeah, I like to see that.
And she's a strong character, and we didn't, as fans, flip out over her. In fact, I think,
So you were seeing feminism and you didn't know it because they didn't punch you in the face with it.
But even at that, it's like when you write a good character, strong character,
it's organic.
It's organic.
You don't notice
have to,
an agenda.
Yeah, there's no push or no agenda there.
Because once, this is in Star Wars: A New Hope, right? Mm-hmm. When they got Leia out of her prison cell, she picked up a weapon and she pretty much rescued herself and didn't need the rest of them, honestly. Mm-hmm. She kind of drug them along with her, right?
She came up with a plan to get out of there. I mean,
she was a diplomat, she was a princess, she was a general. Mm-hmm. She didn't need them, they just happened to be there. So if that's not the strongest female protagonist ever...
And I didn't feel threatened by that.
No, she's freaking out. Didn't you go, woo?
Yeah, I was like, hey, how...
You're a little kid and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, you do it. You go,
You weren't
girl.
looking at the fact she wasn't wearing a bra, were you?
Well, I'm not going to deny that.
Maybe that's a strike against her.
Because you get into the Empire Strikes Back or the Jedi.
You could argue Lucas was a misogynist because he says they don't wear bras in space, floppity floppity. Just... I'm not his biggest fan, but I don't care enough to deal with it. So this paper goes on to say, point that out, you saw feminism and you didn't know it. Now, what you were upset about and what some other fans upset about, one of the reasons they didn't like The Last Jedi was the social justice warrior messages in it. Mm-hmm. That was pushing gender, race, and ethnicity. So I'm thinking, okay, well, why did they do this? Why did they do this? Did they do this because they knew the next Star Wars film would have a massive audience, have a lot of attention, and they would be able to put these agendas so you could see them in case you didn't know that it was bad to be a sexist, racist a-hole. But I thought that's what Sesame Street was for, but maybe I'm wrong. So that Sesame Street's supposed to teach you about that now because it's very liberal. Now, there are fans who think this is just a bad film for whatever reason. I thought the plot development, story, and character were lacking completely. Mm-hmm. If you just want to judge it on as a narrative, it's full of holes.
All right.
I want to quote this to you now. This is how we start tying this in with the Russian stuff. That was just my opinions for. This is a quote. It appears that political activists have used bots and sock puppet accounts to troll left-wing fans. And there is even evidence that Russian influence operators have inserted themselves into the debate to exploit and exacerbate the conflict, thereby securing more immediate attention to the conflict, which again helps spread the perception that America is divided and in chaos. What a lot of trouble to go through just to make America look bad. You insert yourself into a pop culture debate that really doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. But it's the hot topic, so you got to get in on it. So I was like, why go to trouble to build bots and fake accounts, fake social media accounts to keep crap stirred up over Star Wars movies? Well, it's just part of the larger subversive tactics of communism, I guess you could say. So you see how this is tying back in. It just never freaking ends with our relationship with Russia. I learned some new terminology I'd never heard before. And I feel bad about it because I thought I was on top of things, given that I'm the age I'm at. And I should be even more disconnected.
How old are you?
I'm 46, but the people who are my age and older are even more removed from the things you and I are into, probably because they have kids and stuff. But we don't, so we've got all the time in the world to focus on this, social media, YouTube, these kind of topics.
Right.
So I learned the term fantagonists, which are fans who like to antagonize.
Good word, though.
Yeah, it's a good word. He in this paper he gives credit to the person who came up with that idea. Toxic fandom is actually studied by scholars. There's scholarly work and studies on fandom. And he says the widespread view among academics is that some toxic fan practices are symptoms of endemic and omnipresent misogyny, that is geek culture, and he mentions Gamergate. Now, a big bulk of this paper I just blew through because he's explaining his methodology on how he collected data to come to his conclusions. So I'm like, although he did use some scientific methods and he used some applications to data mine and data scrape tweets and stuff, and he just goes into the details of how he did that. So, you know, you see his process. He collected tweets from Ryan Johnson, and he created data sets for it. I thought, hey, that's cool. Never seen that before. Cool. And I told you I learned another new term, sock puppet, in regards to internet postings. Now, sock puppet is a fake persona. Somebody actually made it, but they're pretending to be someone else. They have a different name, or they take on a different stance. It's just a fake person pretending to be somebody else, you know. He explains trolls and the Russian involvement to sway public opinion through online media, not with just Star Wars, but other things, you know, like the Trump campaign and, you know, other things that are topical. He used software to find bots and trolls on social media. That's pretty cool. He found 61 accounts that had a political agenda in regards to the Star Wars topic. He found this tweet, and I don't know who tweeted it. I don't think he attributed it to anybody, but this is an interesting tweet. Don't be fooled by hashtag SJWs, that's social justice warriors. Don't be fooled by social justice warriors. They don't want equality. They truly only want what fits their agenda. Look no further than TLJ, which is The Last Jedi. Every single male character was either a coward, an idiot, or evil. And that's what you brought to my attention right when I finished watching it. He says, what do you think of the portrayal of the men in this movie? I'm like, well, Laura Dern's character, I can't remember her character's name, but her character emasculated, was it Poe Dameron?
Yeah.
She's like, you're not needed here. I'm in charge. Go have your testicles somewhere else, you know. That's what I got out of it. And I think you tried not to influence me, but you're just like, did you notice anything? I'm like, yeah, it was very obvious to me.
I was like watching you watch the movie, kind of like watching a video, like fan reactions.
Now, try to stay calm.
I am.
He proposes a possible explanation as to why they didn't fire Kathleen Kennedy is because it would look bad for Disney, because she is an advocate for social justice issues. If Disney fires her, Disney's going to look sexist and racist. So they're covering their butt.
And I could see that. And let me tell you, it irks me beyond belief.
I know. Just hang with me.
I'm hanging.
We'll give you, we'll give you your... A majority of the negativity stems from politicized accounts, which are often a part of an organized attempt to disrupt and sow discord using the Last Jedi controversy. And he's saying this is coming from Russian accounts. He goes on to say that Star Wars, this is what really like, ooh, listen to this. He says Star Wars has always leaned left of center, and right-leaning fans have chosen to ignore this or just not see it, but now they still feel suddenly disenfranchised because they can see the social justice warrior topics because they're more obvious. That tells me they mishandled it in the writing. They could have been more subtle about it, but I guess we got to have things slapped in our face to see it now because we're stupid. So this is what he means when he says it's always been feminist. Leia was the self-rescuing princess. And, once they got her out of her cell, she didn't need nobody else. She was a general, a princess, and a diplomat. I mean, how much more pro-woman do you have to be to make her a princess, a general, and a diplomat? So, yet Johnson and Kennedy are getting blamed for promoting social justice warrior content when it's been there all along. It just hasn't been as in your face. Now, this is what I was talking about, is like, you held this belief, and then here comes this belief in front of you with the evidence. Well, this is, and then you just accept both. So it's like, well, I like the original content. Well, I'm telling you it's pro-feminist. Well, I still like it, but I don't like this content. Well, it's the same thing. Well, this is called cognitive dissonance. When you hold two or more ideals, beliefs, or values that are contradictory with each other, and you hold these beliefs at the same time. So you have this one belief, suddenly you're presented with new evidence that contradicts that belief, but you can't really resolve it, so you end up believing both of them. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what these Russian influence operators are exploiting, is your cognitive dissonance, your willingness to be persuaded. And they're using individual social media accounts to attack values and to cultivate advanced polarization and disparity, to break down America's sense of community that was and continues to be the purpose of the Russian social media influence campaign targeting the West. Getting the media to pay attention to such conflicts amplifies them, further advancing the Russian objective. Does this sound crazy? Is it like a conspiracy? Well, this guy found these accounts. Now, if it means that they're actively trying to dismantle us through Star Wars, it seems funny and ridiculous, but what if it works? So, just a few more points.
Mm-hmm.
Fantagonists propagate all this misinformation because they don't care about the truth. That gets amplified by bots and sock puppet accounts for political purposes. So you have a fantagonist who's like, yeah, and then so these bots go, hey, that fits our agenda. We'll just keep replicating it.
Mm-hmm.
This paper goes on to point out that Twitter deleted over 200,000 tweets that were found to be Russian troll accounts. So his paper concludes that pop culture debates on social media are being politicized on purpose, sometimes for strategic purposes that have nothing to do with the subject under debate. So that's that subversive thing. Now, I checked his sources.
Mm-hmm.
He did use, the majority of his sources are scholarly research sources, and he used diverse resources. He wasn't just going with, he was doing a lot of modern day, like there's an article he talked, like, where is Ray? You know, so I checked all his sources. It works, checks out. So it's not like this is some janky, cobbled together piece of it's a legit paper.
Okay.
So now you can say what you want to say.
Wow, where does one start in this whole?
But how do you feel like this fits in with the whole history of our dealings with
as we
Russia?
Talked about tonight? The Russian scare, the communist scare. Of course, it was communist. Now,
imagine if they had Twitter back then.
Mm-hmm. It's that fear factor again. I guess my concern was that he used one of his references was to statistics relating to the Trump election, and plus it's still out there because he's being investigated about Russian
collusion.
Collusion, yes,
maybe.
Yeah, so one wonders about that, and as far as like I said, it ties into what we've talked about tonight.
Well, what do you feel about? Okay, you got these fans; they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't like it. You're blah blah blah, and then you're like, you've got these Russian accounts going. Oh, we can use that to keep this crap alive.
Once again, you see that I watch many videos in regards to this topic.
It's it just never ends.
I know. I'm sorry.
Bless your heart.
I'm just excited by the fact that you
read something you could talk about.
Yeah, exactly. I got you to talk about Star Wars in a way that works for
I got to find some Russian scare propaganda with Jane Austen, and I get you to talk about Jane Austen.
But
it's about 2 centuries too early.
You brought up something about the fact that the Russian sock puppet tweet accounts, whatever.
Accounts, yeah.
It brings up the topic of how do you keep. It's kind of about, I've heard this before, where how do you keep America disorganized? By keeping it fighting against itself, and whether it be in politics and now in geek culture.
They just found a topic to latch onto and just keep it going,
And it just frustrates me on being.
This could have easily been Star Trek. It could have been any of the TV shows or any of the.
Don't get me.
They could have done the same thing.
Actually, this kind of similar things that have happened with Star Wars has been permeating through Star Trek Disco, Star Trek Discovery. And that first season, a lot
Star Trek Disco.
Yeah. So a lot of people were not happy about that because of certain agendas being implemented or pushed in that. But at the end of the day, it's clear to me now that this is like a virus, if you will, affecting everything, that to put us against each other, especially social media. We see it daily, especially today. Watching the Kavanaugh vote.
Social media just feels toxic.
It is toxic. I mean, when I talked about earlier how as we walk off into the sunset and leave all this goodbye, meaning the SBU, I say that because to every ring, a king has its ring for a day, and then he passes it along to someone else, and he leaves. Goes off, right? Or he dies. And so with the SBU, one day we're not going to be doing this.
There's no one to pass it on to.
True, but what I'm getting at is the point is that what was I getting to the point?
I quit listening.
Thank you. I appreciate that. While I try to remember what I was thinking, why don't we take our last break of the evening? That sounds perfect, right, Solana?
Hey, it worked out.
Hey, great. So you're listening to SBU. I'm Spaceboy. She's Solana, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sirlana.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. Level up with Spaceboy Universe. No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Man, I like to do tomorrow.
Don't we all? All right, we're back, Solana. And so sorry, I didn't think of what I was thinking before because I got distracted with that wonderful song called Chrysanthemum.
Oh, I was bopping, yeah.
And you can get that for free on spaceboymusic.com. That's right. When you go to Spaceboy Music, yes, I did say that, free. spaceboymusic.com. All the music that I have produced, not all of it, because there's more music that's out there that I haven't posted there, but the majority of it and all the newest stuff is there. And it's a free download. All I ask is, share it, play it loud. If you intend to use it for some kind of commercial endeavor, please let me know. And it's because if you use it without my permission on commercial, then I have to slap your hand. But other than that, free to download, free to play, free to share. It's all good. It's my way to giving back to those people, saying thank you for listening to me for over the years. And so go to spaceboymusic.com and get you some free music, that is. And
I'm sorry.
What was so funny there, Solana?
Nothing to do with you.
Okay. Never.
I'm vibrating because I drank a little bit of this Starbucks cold. What is this? What is this thing? Is it a latte?
Yeah.
You put it in
a latte.
And salted caramel mocha. Now, when I get this as a frappuccino, which is a frozen drink, it's awesome. But as a concentrated liquid in a bottle that's cold, it tastes like liquid cigarette. Okay. But I can't stop drinking it.
First off, what ashtrays have you been drinking from, Sir Lana?
I've had a cigarette or two before.
Oh, see, now you're going to get everybody
and I've smoked a cigar or two or more. And I liked smoking cigars, flavored cigars, Kahlua dipped flavored cigars. And I'd probably do it, but somebody frowns upon that. So I don't smoke nothing.
Well,
which is good because I got enough problems.
Thing is, my mom was a chain smoker, and
But you don't inhale a cigar. You're not supposed to inhale it.
Okay,
it's just like the experience.
I'm not saying that cigars smell bad or anything. It just, I just have this thing.
I respect the fact that you don't want that in the house.
Well, that's very nice of you. I appreciate it. It's one thing that.
But could I do it in the backyard?
Well, just stay away from the tree back there. I don't want it burning up or anything.
Well, it would probably something fall to kill me, most likely.
If
it gets cool enough on the weekends, can I go have a cigar out there?
I'm not going to stop you.
Okay.
Do what you want. Because that means your death day is coming soon.
That strikes me as this is not quite healthy.
What?
And the fact that I'm looking forward to outliving you, this is not the goal of marriage. It sounds messed up when we say it, doesn't it? Didn't you tell me earlier you don't like the Civil War? And you were telling me you don't like the American Civil War. I'm like, I'm pretty sure the people that were in the Civil War didn't like it either.
Well, it's I don't know. I guess it's because the way our country has been, and I hate.
Speaking of history,
history. I just hate going over it.
Now I got that Guns N' Roses song that said, "I don't want your Civil War."
But that's
stuck in my head.
That's generally why when I get into history, I like to start right after the Civil War when you're dealing with Reconstruction, and then from that point on,
everything before then was boring, and then it gets interesting after.
I don't know. I hate to make it sound like that, but yeah, it does seem a little boring.
Well, because they go over it and over it. They do it in middle school. They do it in high school. And they go over it again in college. Like, you didn't get it the first two times.
I get it. It was a terrible war.
And it was a bad idea, and it was a mistake. All right, can we learn something interesting now?
Yeah, I am sorry about it.
But I have to say, because I do work at a university, and I see the course listings, they do have more diverse topics for you to choose from in history, more focused on a piece of history, not all of it.
Right. I hate when it's focused on one particular, because for me,
you like the broader ones that took from like 1840 blah to 19 blah.
Well, I like 20th century history.
Yeah.
And because I could see where it ends up impacting me in my current history, and so.
Why do they want me to go on an epic rant? I don't feel strongly about anything right now.
Anyway, so yeah, I do love history.
I am getting an appreciation for history now because I feel like I've had this jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces that I didn't even know about. And I do all this research and I'm like, oh, there's that piece and it goes here and look at this picture now.
But yeah, it's 20th century history is fascinating. I enjoy reading about it. Because, as you get into it.
What were we talking about? They're talking about, McCarthyism. We're talking about, okay, so after the war, we become a superpower, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say that's largely because we started to advance quickly and technologically because we did bring paperclip over here with those Nazi scientists.
Even during World War II, we advanced technology because war creates innovation.
But I was like,
things.
But even right after the war, because we got those guys over here, and it just went off like gangbusters. But then I was like, was it because of those guys, or was it because of the Roswell crash, or both? So you see how you can tie it all together.
Yeah, I know. It's a big tapestry of things that kind of interconnect. It kind of reminded me of, when you were talking about earlier in the conversation about how people were scared to come forward or about certain things. And so it really kind of emphasizes how people were, clammed up about, okay, yeah, I'm not going to say anything.
Don't perjure themselves without representation.
Because, a lot of these people, what I'm referring to is the Roswell crash.
Yeah.
Crash of 1947. These people would come up to him and say, "You're not going to say anything, because if you do, you'll end up dead." And because in a way, I guess you could say that's that mentality that was going on during that time, people were afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
Fear.
I'm liking history now because every time I learn a little piece more, it's a link in the chain that gets connected that I didn't know. For me personally, maybe it's, it's all out there ready, but it's ready for me to discover how it all works together, That's been my journey. And I was telling you, I have learned more doing research for this show than I ever learned in college, high school, grade school, because I'm probably getting it on my own. I have my own methods. I'm coming to my own conclusions. It's not being dictated to me, what I'm saying?
Do you find that the history topics that I give you are enlightening to...
Like I said, this particular one about McCarthyism, I kind of knew what it was about. I knew it was about looking for communists and like a witch hunt, Red Scare for these people. But I just didn't know what he did, how he did it, what the historical significance was. I didn't know about all this other turmoil. I didn't realize the level of paranoia and hysteria, and that it was legit because of what went on during the wars, what went on right after, and that's still going on. And we've never been on good terms with Russia. And I don't think it's because we have these polarizing political ideologies. It's never going to happen. We can play nice, but we can't, get along and be friends. That's why we still have nuclear weapons. So.
True.
Give me, not for next week necessarily, but just when it comes around again for history, give me a Reagan era topic. Find something there.
Well, Nancy.
Think of something there. That would be interesting, I think.
Push in the George Bush.
What?
That's from a song, actually.
Okay.
I'm sure
we'll discuss that later.
Yeah. You'll have to look at it. I think you'd like that song.
Okay. Is that... Do you remember...
It's the Reagan rap or whatever.
Okay, but do you remember... It's a song... I can't remember the name of it. It goes, why did the Russians invade Afghanistan? Yeah, that one. It's on my Spotify playlist.
By CCP.
Yeah.
Or
CCCP, yeah. And then there's that epic rap battles. Rasputin versus Lenin versus Stalin versus Putin. That's a good one.
That is a good one. I miss them producing new ones. But, you know, Nice Peter, I guess before he kind of went off the air, or off the channel, for so to speak, he was about to have a baby with his wife.
Well, that can distract one from things.
And him and Epic Lloyd, I think Epic Lloyd did something recently.
Epic Rap Battles History is a YouTube channel, and they take historical figures or historical topics
and fictional characters
and make them have rap battles against each other.
But it's always great when they do two historical characters.
They did one, you know, the Ghostbusters versus the Mythbusters, and you know, things like that. I like Justin Bieber versus Beethoven. That's another good one. But yeah, check that out if you never have. And they're on Spotify too, I've noticed.
No,
that's probably where I was getting my playlist from. But I enjoyed tonight's topic. I wish I had had more time to go more in depth into what McCarthy said, what he did, more quotes from him. I couldn't start the research till last night. Oh, my goodness. Also, there's things I found out. I don't know if we talked about this. That has nothing to do with Spaceboy Universe. I just found out watching stand-up comedy, old stand-up comedy.
Oh,
remember when, I don't know if we talked about this on the Universe, this is a week or so ago, where I was listening to some stand-up comedy. I found out about a fight that happened at a basketball game. And I'm like, well, of course fights happen at sporting events. I knew that, but I just really, I really didn't know that there was this epic one that happened, Piston-Pacers game, where the basketball players actually got up in the stands and started beating up fans. Now, the fans were antagonizing. They weren't innocent, but sitting there watching that footage where you've got people who weren't doing anything, but they're sitting in the middle of it with their children right there, clutching their children. I'm like, okay, that's going too far, you know. But, you know, fights, like, it's interesting where you've got hockey where fights are like, well, that's just, let them just work it out. And if they don't, just put them in a box for a minute.
You know, you saw how the refs just kind of stay back and,
in hockey,
and let them go at it.
This, you're not... Basketball, you're not supposed to fight each other or the people in the stands.
The fans, yeah.
But there, you go on YouTube and look this up, and I'm like, you know, jaw drop. So I'd listened to Bill Burr talk about it, and after he talked about it, I went and looked it up. So I thought, that's interesting how you can learn anywhere, anytime. And then I made you watch it.
No, I was like, wow, you know, we generally watch a lot of stuff like that, like the fail videos, and that just kind of like went right into that. You know, I did want to make a quick comment on my quick view on Republicans and Democrats. You know, in the end, it doesn't matter who you vote for. You know, we're all out there eating the same crap sandwich.
We're all going to die.
And in the end, you know, it really doesn't matter. So... you know, I hate to burst the bubble of politics on you, but, you know, I think if we can get beyond this, you know, left-right thing that's dividing the nation and come together as Americans, then, you know, I think we'll be better off. But until we realize that we're all in the same boat and, you know...
That's not going to happen, dear. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen.
So I should give up hope like Luke did, and
you be a good person, set an example by the life you live, but don't expect anything from other people.
And then drink blue milk from a sea cow.
Another mark against that. But what was the social agenda there? Big space sea cows need their time in the spotlight? I don't know.
I think that was
what was the freaking purpose of that? Just to show more aliens?
Alien boobies?
It was a space sea cow thing, you know. I don't know. I don't know if I was the best person to watch that movie because I'm over it already, the whole Star Wars thing. It's fine that it exists. It's fine if you're a fan. I don't have a problem with that. It's just no longer for me. But like I said, I was really interested to find out. It's like, you didn't think they had this agenda all along. You just didn't see it. You chose not to see it.
I think that's a bunch of hooey, to be honest with you. You know, going back over the original 4, 5, and 6, I didn't really see any hidden agenda there in those movies. And, you know, it's like I tell you, I could watch those movies over and over again, the 4, 5, and 6.
It's good. Well-written movies.
Well-written, good storyline.
They focused on story and character development rather than special effects because they didn't really have enough technology for the special effects. If you notice 1, 2, and 3, it's like, ooh, lasers and, you know, spaceships and whee, you know, look what we can do now. Big whoop. That's not memorable. You know, The Matrix is memorable because it was groundbreaking with effects, but it had an interesting story. Everything around you is a lie.
Even the cake.
Well, that was something you'd have to explain later, but just a proof that just because you have something fancy and shiny doesn't make it good or important.
Okay.
Or memorable. It is too cold in here. My nose is running. That's what I'm doing.
And you know, it's not like I haven't turned up the AC now.
I know. It's not taking much tonight. Maybe it's because I drank the Starbucks. I'm like, yee.
Probably.
Yeah.
I got a little chilly here for a minute ago. Got the, you know.
Yeah. So, I guess it's time to talk about housekeeping, and I got nothing to tell you.
Well, I do. You know, exciting stuff that we've monetized our YouTube channel, and
oh yeah.
And you ready for this? So far, since we got our monetization going,
you're drunk.
I've had a few there, Solana, and I guarantee you, I am not drunk tonight.
He can't really drink; he's diabetic.
Yeah, that sugar stuff. Anyway, the thing is that the YouTube channel is growing, and I think we're over 2,000 subscribers now, and I'm excited about that. And also what that means is that we, you know, since I mentioned monetization, I just
look, you're drunk when you say it.
Monetization.
It's not an easy word.
It's, or at least tonight it's not.
You can make money now.
Yeah, we've made not
a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say we've made a whole 15 cents.
Yeah. Someday we can buy a beverage.
Someday. Not Sunday, but someday.
Someday.
So, yeah, I keep pushing the YouTube agenda.
What?
Because, you know, I want people to come check us out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and watch that ad so we can get some money.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do, man.
It's easier than going to our site and donating.
Oh, man, I'm giddy from this Starbucks. It's like the room is spinning.
But anyway, what I you know, just, you know, check us out on YouTube. You know, at some point we'll have more content related to.
Yeah, we talked about there's going to be some video content where you'll see Spaceboy, but we'll talk about maybe some top 10 lists or some things we found online, and that's coming up.
And I have an idea for a show that we're going to do on YouTube.
Don't give it away.
Yeah, I'm not giving it away. And you know,
Don't steal it.
I deleted that post, by the way.
I did my mind trick on you, didn't I?
You did.
I did a mind trick on you.
So yeah, and then of course,
don't give away the milk for free.
If you're a fan of Spaceboy Universe, you can also become an official space cadet by going to Facebook. And
I don't know why I'm so giddy.
And it has to be approved in order to get into the room. So, usually I'm checking those out. So if you request to become a space cadet, and it's space cadet.
What?
Space cadets who like Spaceboy Universe? Yes. So, and then of course that's where a lot of the content for the show and things that are coming up, you can go there and be bestowed knowledge and become more self-aware of what we're going to talk about on the show, and interact, and that's all great.
Yes.
So go there, and then of course next week I hope to have my act together. I know I'm a little sluggish right now.
I don't know what next week's topic is.
And Sunday usually we'll talk about that.
Yeah. As in tomorrow, we'll talk about that.
Because I have to create...
We really need to get our act together.
I have to create the banner and all that stuff for it.
Yeah, tomorrow I got to do laundry. I got to update the Spaceboy Universe
there
website.
You go, Kay. She said it. She's got to do laundry.
I have got to write a resume for someone else who needs my help.
Not me.
Not Spaceboy, but a friend. I'm helping out. Hopefully it will get her a job.
Because that's how nice Solana is.
I seem to have a knack for this type of thing, helping people find jobs to apply for and then helping them apply for it. I don't know what that is. So,
haven't heard anything else about the observatory that was closed out there in New Mexico. I need to follow up. I think Linda Moulton-Howe posted something on. She's got videos now on YouTube, which is really cool and exciting.
I wonder where she's been. Mm-hmm. I feel like running up some stairs and punching a side of meat.
So that's what's going to happen to me, ladies and gentlemen, tonight. I'm going to get slugged in my ribs from Solana. She's going to climb the Alps and then come over and on my side of the bed and hit me repeatedly.
Well, I'm going to try not to do that, dear.
I appreciate that. What else we got here, Solana?
I should never drink this again.
Is it really?
I just like, yeah. I feel really aggressive now. I feel like my head is spinning. My heart is beating.
And which flavor is that?
Salted caramel mocha. If you want to lick a cigarette without having the cigarette. Mm-hmm. I'm not disparaging Starbucks. If I go get the same drink as a Frappuccino, it's awesome.
And I still got my pumpkin spice in there that I haven't touched yet.
Almost a month going on.
It's not been a month. Mm-hmm. Been 2 weeks.
You got it in September.
It's got an expiration date of next year on it.
Yeah, if you never open it.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been opened.
Is it wrong to be hungry again?
No, because we had
cheap food.
Taco Hell tonight.
Yeah. Okay. I've gone crazy. I've lost my mind.
If you keep rubbing your eyebrows like that, they're going to just peel off.
I'm trying to claw my face off. It's not working.
I mean, if I didn't know you any better, I'd swear you'd just done some crack or something.
Oh, God, don't set me off now.
I can't think of anything funny, joking-wise. I mean, but you're like rubbing your eyebrows.
K28 said in chat earlier, how is your head and does it still make me laugh? The head wound thing.
Oh.
I said, every single time I think about you bleeding from your forehead in here, I laugh. It's just never not funny. It's funny every time. You bleeding from your forehead. Because it was the casualness of it. You're talking, you're focused, and you're on point, but you're dabbing your head. There's blood. There's this blood. There's this blood, and it's.
Well, that's a true professional.
You're
right
talking
there.
about cryptocurrency very eloquently.
Cryptocurrency.
Blood.
That is just an interesting topic right now.
You go back and check that out.
That cryptocurrency issue that is out there right now, why cryptocurrency is not like exploding left and right, is because they're still waiting for a certain thing from the government to go forward, and they've put that on like a postponement of like 45 days. So it could go out to, this explosion of the cryptocurrency that I keep on hearing and talking about.
When you say explosion, you're saying going up or down?
Going up.
Okay.
Because once that opens up and there's the approval that goes through, there was talk about, cryptocurrency, I'm referring to Bitcoin to be more precise, other than my talking abilities right now. So it was supposed to go from $6,000 to 40,000, and of course,
what?
Yeah, I know. And so
the highest it's gone is 20,000,
and so they were predicting it to hit 40,000.
That'd be the highest all time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have some cryptocurrency?
Yes.
Okay, you sold some.
I sold some BitLight, is what it was that I sold. But I kept my Bitcoins.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep holding out. Hey, money day coming. Just got to hold out.
7 more days. Just got to get through.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be a good day. So on that magical note, boy, talk about that perfect timing. Let's just do this. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the SBU broadcast. Join us next week, my friends, with an exciting topic as we explore the universe. Right, Solana?
Yeah, sure.
Good night, y'all.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Executive producer is Sir Lana. Associate producer is Leanne Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Leanne K, K28, Dino, Solars Blue Raven, Patrick Sporer, Bob and Beverly N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.